You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
What if you could click a single button and have an entire brand identity,
Wow.
complete with like market strategy, typography, and visual assets, materialize in the exact amount of time it takes you to walk down the street and grab a flat white?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd when you frame it like that.
Because apparently that is exactly where we are right now.
It is. And looking at the tools emerging across the industry, that specific scenario is not some futuristic hypothetical anymore. It is rapidly becoming the new baseline for production.
Spot on. And that is exactly why we are here to pull apart all of this. My mission is to explore the massive shifts happening across design, tech hardware, and AI tools to understand where the creative industry is actually heading.
Right. Yeah.
Think of me as your vocal technologist, that tech-savvy mate who spends hours digging through the technical specifications and industry white papers so you do not have to. I know you are time-poor and just want the good stuff.
Which is very fair.
And to help me look under the hood and keep us entirely grounded in reality, I have got the calm voice of reason right here with me.
Always happy to be the designated driver on these technological joyrides. There is a lot of complex information to synthesize.
Geeks of it, yeah.
And it is crucial we connect the dots between what is happening in the physical hardware space and how that fundamentally alters software development and user experience design.
Spot on. Because before we explore how we design the digital experience, we have to look at what physical canvas we are actually designing for.
Exactly. The canvas dictates the art.
Let us get into some of these Apple hardware leaks, because there are some properly wild contradictions happening. The word is the iPhone 18 Pro might actually be getting thicker.
Right, which is unusual for them.
Very. We are talking 8.8 millimeters. And the reason? To fit a massive 5,000 milliamp battery and a 2 millimeter A20 Pro chip.
Ah, right.
But here is the kicker. Apple might reuse the iPhone 17 Pro manufacturing molds. That means the major aesthetic changes everyone was expecting.
Like the smaller dynamic island?
Yes. And the under-display Face ID. Those could be significantly reduced or delayed entirely. I have to push back on this immediately. Are we really chucking out the sleek, minimalist aesthetic just to get an incremental battery bump?
Well, you are looking at it purely from an aesthetic standpoint,
Yeah.
but we have to look at the underlying mechanics.
Okay, I am listening.
We are not just talking about an incremental battery bump for like scrolling social media.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about the physical requirements for local AI processing.
Oh, right, because it runs on the phone itself.
Precisely. If you want advanced artificial intelligence models to run natively on your device without pinging a cloud server, you need massive computational power. That 2 millimeter A20 Pro chip is going to generate an incredible amount of heat.
Right, because the harder the processor works, the hotter the phone gets.
Exactly. And you cannot cheat physics. If you want that level of processing power in your pocket without the device literally melting your hands.
Which would be bad.
Very bad. Or aggressively throttling its own performance to cool down, you need thermal headroom. You need a bigger battery to sustain the power draw, and you need physical space to dissipate the heat.
Wow.
So for years, the trajectory was always thinner, lighter, sleeker. Now, we are seeing a structural pivot. Apple is prioritizing raw computational utility and thermal management over aesthetic minimalism.
But then you contrast that thick utilitarian brick with the iPhone Fold 3D CAD leak.
Oh, the folding one, yes.
Yeah, Sonny Dixon shared these renders showing a dual camera bump, very similar to the rumored iPhone Air. It has these beautifully rounded corners opposite the hinge and a very specific internal and external screen layout.
Right.
It feels like Apple's hardware strategy is like renovating a house. Sometimes you add a radical, high-budget new extension like a foldable screen, and sometimes you just slap on a fresh coat of paint.
That is a great analogy.
Speaking of paint, the iMac M5 is getting a color refresh, adopting the MacBook Neo palette, silver, blush, citrus, indigo, though it is entirely unclear if they will keep that $1,299 starting price.
And that MacBook Neo is a perfect case study in this tension between form and function.
How so?
Well, it has those gorgeous colors and an incredibly thin profile, which makes it brilliant for light, portable tasks. But form factor dictates function. If you have ever tried to run a heavy creative workflow on a machine like that,
Oh, yeah, like managing massive rendering files.
or running a complex logic procession, you know exactly what happens. The machine struggles, it gets hot, the fans spin up, and the software performance tanks. Hardware form factors set the absolute boundaries for what software design can achieve.
That makes total sense. So Let us pull apart that connection between hardware and software because it changes how we interact with media entirely. Look at the Amazon Fire TV application redesign.
Right, they're turning the mobile phone into a true second screen for discovery.
Exactly. It is no longer just a backup digital remote you use when you lose the plastic one in the couch cushions. The app now features simplified navigation, clearer category icons, and these dedicated For You recommendation rows.
Which proves a massive point about television platforms today. They desperately need our mobile devices to act as discovery hubs.
Because the TV interface is so clunky.
Exactly. Think about the mechanical friction of a television interface. The sheer volume of content available across streaming services is far too overwhelming to navigate using a simple four-way directional pad on a plastic remote.
It is exhausting. You
Yeah.
spend more time clicking sideways through menus than actually...
Actually a film, exactly.
Yeah.
So the mobile phone, with its touchscreen and intuitive scrolling, becomes the essential curation tool for the bigger screen. The phone acts as the agile navigator, while the television remains the passive display monitor.
I love that. The phone is the steering wheel and the TV is just the windshield.
Precisely.
But here is where we hit a massive bottleneck. Because we now have these infinite, highly optimized surfaces for content discovery, the sheer demand for content has completely outpaced human production capacity.
It really has.
Which brings us to a concept that is properly wild. Google has this AI Futures Fund, and they are putting serious backing behind a Paris-based studio called Animage.
Right, the animation studio.
Yes, and they are using artificial intelligence to cut high-quality animation production timelines from 6 years down to just 18 months.
Which is an incredible leap, and we have to look at how they are mechanically achieving that time reduction.
Because animation is notoriously slow, right?
Extremely. Traditional pipelines are highly labor-intensive. You have storyboarding, complex lighting calculations, and the incredibly tedious process of in-betweening.
Right, what is in-betweening?
It is where human artists manually draw the transitional frames between major movements to make the animation fluid. Animage is utilizing AI to shortcut those physical physics renderings and automate the repetitive character rigging.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the machine handles the interpolation, allowing a massive compression of the production schedule.
18 months for something that used to take 6 years? That is wild. And it is not just animation studios doing this. You have AI presentation tools like GenPPT AI generating entire corporate slide decks using the Claude Opus 4.6 model in a matter of minutes.
Right.
And Branding Studio A, which I mentioned at the very start of our conversation, building full market-ready brand identities in 50 to 70 minutes.
The acceleration is staggering. But speed comes with a hidden structural cost.
Yeah.
And that is where we run into the concept of cognitive debt.
Cognitive debt. I love this term, but I am going to push back on it slightly. If the code works perfectly and the end user gets a great experience, why does it matter if the human developer fully understands the working out? Why should we care?
Because software development is never a finished product. It is a living ecosystem that requires constant maintenance.
Okay, fair.
You are probably familiar with technical debt, right?
Yeah.
That is the known bad code a developer writes just to get a product shipped on time, fully knowing they will have to go back and fix it later.
Yeah, the classic we will fix it in post mentality.
Exactly. They understand the flaw. Cognitive debt is far more insidious. As engineering teams use AI assistants to ship code faster and faster, the sheer volume of output completely outpaces human comprehension.
Wow.
Cognitive debt is code that is active in your product, but nobody on your team actually understands it well enough to judge its quality or security.
So it is exactly like copying your mate's homework in high school. You get the immediate result, you hand the assignment in, and it looks brilliant on paper.
Spot on.
But then you completely fail the final exam because you never built the mental model. You do not actually understand the underlying mathematics of how you got the answer. I have to admit, I find it genuinely terrifying and honestly a bit hilarious that major digital platforms are potentially running on complex code that the lead developers do not actually understand.
It is concerning. We're
Yeah.
literally just crossing our fingers and hoping the machine knows what it is doing.
Which is a terrible strategy.
And hope is a terrible software architecture strategy. What happens mechanically is that when a bug inevitably occurs, or when the system needs to scale, the debugging process becomes incredibly slow.
Because no one knows where to look.
Right. Onboarding new team members becomes impossible because there is no logical structure to explain to them. It frequently leads to teams having to execute total code rewrites from scratch. Think of it like building the Winchester Mystery House.
Wait, the massive mansion in California where the staircases go straight into the ceiling and doors open into blank walls.
That is the one. The builder just kept adding rooms and hallways for decades without an overall architectural blueprint.
Right.
That is exactly what happens when teams build software features in isolated silos using AI. They just keep adding functional rooms because the AI makes it so incredibly fast to build them.
But none of the rooms connect properly.
The result is a fast but entirely fragmented user experience that makes no logical sense and ultimately drives customers away. Moving fast is not the same thing as moving with intention.
Which is exactly where a tool like agentation comes into the picture, right? It is trying to mechanically bridge this gap between human intent and AI generation.
Exactly.
It turns visual user interface annotations into structured technical context for these AI coding agents. So instead of giving the AI a vague text prompt about what a button should look like, you click the design elements, and agentation feeds the AI the exact CSS selectors and the specific React component names.
Right. It forces a level of human blueprinting back into the automated development process. Blueprints matter more than ever when AI accelerates your build speed.
Because speed without a map is a trap.
Speed without a comprehensive mental model is a complete trap. You must understand the structural architecture of what you are building, or the entire platform will inevitably collapse under its own weight.
Okay, so if artificial intelligence is generating the complex code and it is generating the visual assets at warp speed, we have to ask the massive glaring question. What is the human designer actually supposed to do now?
That is the crucial question.
Because we have the new Photoshop beta AI assistant launching, you can just use natural language commands on the web and mobile interfaces to adjust studio lighting, change complex backgrounds, and execute these incredibly difficult workflows just by typing or talking to your screen.
This requires looking at Jacob Nielsen's AI capability maturity model. He outlines a highly detailed 6-level framework for how design teams are going to structurally evolve.
6 levels.
Yes, it starts at level 1 with basic skepticism and limited ad hoc use.
Yeah.
But it scales all the way up to embedding AI into the very core of enterprise design systems. The ultimate structural shift is designers moving away from being purely pixel pushers to becoming system gardeners.
System gardeners, that is a brilliant visual. But what does a system gardener actually do mechanically? Can an AI system actually design a highly functional user interface on its own yet?
It can absolutely produce adequate, generic visual layouts very quickly.
Yeah.
But it fundamentally struggles with complex business context.
Right. It does not know why it is building the thing.
Exactly. It does not understand the psychological nuances of specific target audiences, and it struggles to create distinct, trustworthy branding. Interestingly, while conversational AI interfaces are amazing for open-ended queries, graphical interfaces are still vastly superior for tasks requiring precision.
Oh, really?
Yes. If you are trying to configure a complex internal data table for a logistics company, talking to a chatbot is a nightmare. You need a mouse, a screen, and a visually structured environment.
Right, because trying to verbally explain how to sort 3,000 rows of supply chain data to a chatbot would make you want to pull your hair out. You just want to click a column header.
Exactly.
This ties perfectly into why we need to fundamentally change how we build websites, moving toward designing layout content blocks instead of full-page templates.
Yes.
Think about the old way of web design, like drawing a highly detailed printed map. It is beautiful, but the second a client adds a massive new paragraph of text, or a user opens it on a weirdly sized monitor, the whole map is useless.
Right, it breaks.
Building with modular content blocks on a consistent grid system is like using a GPS routing system. The layout scales and reroutes dynamically based on the user's immediate environment.
And that dynamic scalability requires a massive strategic pivot from the human designer. You can no longer rely purely on visual execution as your primary professional value.
So what do they need to learn?
Designers must broaden their skill sets. They need to understand overarching business strategy, they need to read data analytics, and they need to develop cross-functional leadership skills. And crucially, they need to integrate much earlier into the broader product lifecycle.
Yes, the capacity planning issue. UX design teams are almost always treated as simple visual executors. They get squeezed into the very end of the project roadmap right before the engineering team starts building the code.
Which always leads to rushed aesthetic decisions and total team burnout. Design teams need shared estimation frameworks with engineering.
Like using the same tracking tools.
Exactly. They need to integrate their daily workflows into tracking tools like Jira or Linear. They need to track user research and design iterations with the exact same rigor that engineering tracks software bugs.
That makes a lot of sense.
The true value of a senior designer is no longer in executing the visual layout. It is in content curation, contextual problem solving, and strategic capacity planning.
Okay, let us pull that specific thread on curation, because I think this leads us to the ultimate human antidote. When the actual execution of tasks becomes entirely automated, the things that require unique human intent and authentic culture become our absolute competitive advantage.
Yes, brand culture is massive right now.
It is. The materials we're looking at highlighted the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl win as a prime example of this working in the real world. They contemporize their specific regional heritage and their provenance to create highly distinctive value.
Brand provenance is a fascinating psychological concept. It is your authentic history, your origin story, and the specific geographic or cultural context you emerged from. When everything around you is generated by an algorithm in seconds, provenance is the one thing that simply cannot be faked. It preserves the very best elements of the past while adapting to stay relevant for the future.
It grounds the brand.
Exactly. The most successful modern brands do not just balance heritage and relevance, they maximize that paradox. They create a distinctive value proposition built on real human history that a machine learning model simply cannot hallucinate.
And it is not just massive sports franchises doing this. It is happening on an individual, grassroots level. Look at Suleiman Darani and his website, Curation of Curations.
Oh, that is a great example.
It is this gorgeous, highly intentional, dark mode cinema lobby environment designed entirely for creative inspiration. He pulls specific design examples from Google Design, from Apple, from Vox.
Right.
It is a visual sanctuary completely free of algorithmic clutter. It is focused entirely on his own personal editorial judgment. I am genuinely surprised and really appreciative that the ultimate antidote to all this AI fatigue is literally just highly intentional human curation.
It really is.
Which, yeah, is exactly as comforting as it sounds. We still desperately need humans to tell us what is actually good.
Editorial judgment is absolutely the new premium skill. And you see this deep desire for authentic connection reflected in how individual creatives are navigating their own careers right now. Look to the prominent women in the dribble design community actively shaping their own professional paths.
Yes, Irene Naiman formatting her entire freelance illustration career around motherhood, ensuring she only takes on highly intentional projects that fit her life.
Exactly.
And Minae Day, the co-founder of MUTI Studio, focusing entirely on building collaborative workplace cultures where people feel genuinely valued, rather than constantly having to prove their worth to a corporate hierarchy. It is about choosing personal visibility over corporate safety and defining success through your own set of values.
Which is vital right now, especially when you look at the broader industry environment. There is a significant UK creative exodus happening as we speak.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Highly skilled creatives are leaving the commercial market due to massive economic pressures, consistently shrinking budgets, and highly cautious corporate clients who are afraid to take aesthetic risks. It is a structurally tough environment for pure execution.
It is brutal out there. But then you have people like Frankie Wang, a senior designer at JP Morgan, who is actively embracing the artificial intelligence tools while focusing his human empathy on designing for aging populations.
Yeah.
He is using the complex machine learning models to simplify the massive data analysis, which frees up his time so he can focus entirely on creating more inclusive, human-centered digital environments. It is a perfect example of using the raw computational tech to amplify the human empathy.
And we're seeing the generative tools themselves bifurcate to support these different professional needs. Take the direct comparison between Adobe Firefly and Midjourney.
Okay. Yeah.
Firefly is winning aggressively in the corporate space on commercial safety and seamless integration into professional workflows. Because it is trained on licensed stock imagery, it is legally safe for massive brands to use without getting sued for copyright infringement.
That makes sense for the big agencies.
But Midjourney, however, wins hands down on pure visual exploration, artistic weirdness, and pushing aesthetic boundaries.
Exactly. Which brings me to Linda Murad's Hermes campaign. She created this incredibly surreal, lithography-inspired animated campaign based around a Venture Beyond theme.
Right. The one with the seahorse.
Yes, it features this stunning upside-down ocean and a whimsical seahorse journey. And the absolute best part of the whole story, that massive corporate campaign was born from a simple, personal Instagram commission.
That perfectly ties everything we have discussed together. Building that authentic brand provenance applies just as much to a massive sports team as it does to an individual emerging designer trying to get noticed by legacy brands like Nike or Apple or Hermes.
Spot on.
You cannot just sit quietly and wait to be recruited by an algorithm. You have to be loud online. You have to actively look for side doors, build strange passion projects, and reach out directly to independent studios.
You have to be proactive.
Ultimately, you must cultivate a unique perspective and a specific point of view that a predictive text model cannot possibly replicate.
If cognitive debt means we no longer truly understand the complex code running our digital infrastructure, and AI systems are handling the bulk of the visual execution, are we rapidly moving towards a future where the only true technological skill left is pure philosophy, simply deciding what should exist rather than knowing how to build it?
That is a fascinating question to leave everyone with.
Keep questioning the tech, because that is exactly what being a vocal technologist is all about.
Spoken Tech for your ears.